Hello folks and welcome. I'm happy so many of you are continuing with the course. I want to spend a little bit of time introducing you to project number 3. I'd like to give you an overview of the concepts and a quick little insight into the prompt. So to begin, I actually want to start where we ended last week. Last week I gave you a ridiculous little question about some objects, a guitar, a measuring cup, scissors, a classroom or the desks in the classroom, a notebook, and an old school camcorder. And I had asked you to think about all of these items with regard to the arguments that they may make. And some of you went much further than I was actually looking for you to go. The answer I was looking for was really simple. All of these objects here actually value a right-handed world. Right? Here's a right-handed guitar. Here's a measuring cup with writing that only works if you're holding it in your right hand. Right-handed scissors, desks for the right-handed, a notebook that's a lot easier to use if you're right-handed, and this old school camcorder hardly works at all if you are not right-handed. And so the point was that we can actually see that these items or these objects are agendized. They value a right-handed world. And that's a pretty ridiculous example. But the point is made. Objects can be agendized. And for us, that's really important as we get into project number 3. Because in project number 3, we're going to move beyond just language. You'll remember that in project 1, we analyzed language. We're going to get beyond just language and symbols. In project number 2, we analyzed both language and symbols. And now, we're really just going to investigate how the objects that surround us in our lives have agendas, are themselves actors, are contributors to the conversations that we have. And so I know that that's a little abstract now. What I'm going to ask you to do is to take a look at an article. And I'll be honest, it's a pretty complicated article. It's relatively long, it's 17 pages, and there are a lot of convoluted, complicated ideas that the author shares. So before you start reading the article, I want you to think about the thesis that the author is making. And in this article, you're going to see that the author begins to talk about artifacts or objects, or he uses the language of technologies. And he makes the point that these are man-made. And because they are man-made, they then embody, just like our earlier discourses, the values, the ideologies, and the attitudes, right? The agendas of their creators. And he also makes the point that objects are interesting because at times the object can actually have an agenda that is different from the agenda that the creator had made or had. And so now we're going to start to look at these objects and think about how these objects actually participate in the conversations that we have. In the article, you'll see that he talks about examples like overpasses and tomato harvesters and school plazas and even ships. And for him, he doesn't just talk about these kind of superficial right-handed world sorts of agendas. He talks about more profound agendas, about arrangements of powers and of power and positionality. He talks about class division. And that's what I'm interested in you starting to see. I want you to start to think about how these sorts of objects and artifacts in our culture are actually participants in the cultural conversations that we have. And why? Well, because this is what you'll be doing. In project number 3, I'm asking all of you to choose an artifact of your choice and to think of the artifact as an actor in an ever-continuing conversation. And so with that, I invite you to take a look at this article and to think about how the objects of our lives are actually fellow communicators in the decisions that we make. Hope that helps a bit. Have a good time reading the article. Take care.